So welcome back to part 2 of creating straight fur. There is a new worksheet to go with this video, so do find that in the link down below. It's available for non-members as well as, of course, for members. And in this video, what we're going to do is return to the skills that we developed in part 1. So you should now feel much more comfortable about creating fluid fur markings that all just sit in a row and should have be vaguely parallel to each other and have a nice directional flow to them. Now we're going to look at how to arrange these markings, and this at first might sound a little bit obvious and a bit pointless to do, but honestly I cannot tell you how many times I see these mistakes occur in people's work because we get so bogged down in all the details and worrying about the getting the final picture correct that we kind of forget about the application of the techniques that we've learned, and then by the end we've actually missed something that's been right in front of us the whole time and could have been fixed as we've gone along, and instead is much harder to fix by the end of the drawing. So we've got these nice fur markings that we were creating. They've got a relaxed curve to them, they've got a nice flow, they're fluid, we're floating our pencil on and off the page. But we can't put them down in rows like this. If we were to go and draw our pet portrait and put all of the fur down in little sections, we're just going to end up with something that feels like a carpet by the end. It's going to feel really strange and we'll get a pattern occurring. They might not just be in rows. I see all sorts of things getting created, and if I'm not paying attention, I myself even do this sometimes as well. So what we're going to start off by doing is we've got our worksheet and it has a few lines for us in the boxes. I want you to start off by making these nice relaxed markings running along the top of the line first. Now when I say these need to run along the top of the line, again, remember there is such a thing as natural variation, and some of these marks might just slightly slip over the line, some might not quite touch it, but in general these markings are sitting on the line. We're then going to have a set of markings that sit in the middle of the line, and then a few coming below the line as well. So again, a bit of a warm-up to get you back into it from the last session, doing exactly what we were doing, but now just thinking about this line as our midpoint, and we're arranging collections around it. Now to start to get to this to feel natural, when we're drawing, instead of thinking about putting markings that are all starting from the same point and finishing at roughly the same point in a space like the head, for example, and then finding that we've filled it in this kind of manner. Instead, we need to think about arranging lines that fill a space. So instead, I'm still creating lines of the same length as we had before, but now I'm dotting them around this line. So instead, I'm kind of filling a space maybe like so. So I'm going to have markings that start on the top of the line, run through the middle of the line, and run underneath the line, but they're going to happen all at once. Now the important thing to remember, of course, is what we did in part 1. So these markings need to be roughly parallel to each other for most straight fur types, so that these have a fairly good flow to them. If I was to start suddenly doing this, and making some straight marks, and then, I've got a space down here that I want to fill in, you can see immediately I've started to cross hatch things and make it really messy. But if we return to what we learned in part 1, and we dot our pencil around so that the marks begin and end in different places, but all of these markings are roughly the same length and heading in roughly the correct direction, you're going to start to create an area of fur. It's very much thinking about an area, but still remembering the consistency that does matter from part 1, the length and the lay of these markings. Because again, if I was to create an area like this, but then start to make marks that were much bigger or much more curved or harder, see, again, we've got a mess, a different type of mess, but we've still got a mess. So consistency in the type of the mark you're making matters, but then how you're laying it down needs to be fairly random so that we can fill the space in. So, considering that we're looking at straight fur, what we also need to think about are our edges. So as we get potentially to the top of a dog's head, if we imagine that this is a very flat top of the dog's head and we have straight short fur, such as on a Labrador, what we're not going to see is this arrangement on the edge. For example, we're not going to see the markings poking up over the top of the edge like this. This almost feels a bit more like grass or something. But it certainly doesn't feel like a Labrador's fur. So we're following the rules from up here, whereby we're starting our markings in different places. The lay and length are fairly consistent, but then we've got these soft edges. This is the top of the head. Well, the fur is meant to be fairly flat and straight. So instead, when you get to doing an edge for a dog or a cat, especially cats that have a straight fur, maybe a fine fur, but it's flat to the structure of the animal, we need to instead make sure that these do have a fairly neat finish. So instead, you're effectively going to be colouring within the lines in this instance, and maybe having to cut a couple of your markings short to make sure that you do stay pretty much within the lines. There will always be small exceptions. On Labradors, for example, around the joint of the ear, you would usually get a few bits of fur, a few hairs that stick up and then would come down for the ear. But they are in a few areas. There are exceptions to the rule, and again, this is something that I commonly see. Even if people manage to fill in the area of the face, for example, correctly, because making fur is quite good fun when you get good at it, and you might be really proud of the lovely soft marks that you've made, people then inevitably make the subject go from having this very straight, fine, flat fur to being something that's fluffy because they accidentally give it this lifted edge. So you want to make sure that you have quite a neat edge to these sorts of animals. Again, cats especially, they're a very good example in general. At the end of your worksheet, you will of course find troubleshooting, which discusses what we've been going through in this video. But these are the building blocks for doing straight fur. When you move to doing straight fur with pastel pencils, I would encourage you to go through all of these exercises again. It's going to feel very different with a pastel pencil, but get comfortable with your HB and normal copy paper to begin with. They're cheap and easily accessible materials to work with, and for most people they will be easier to manipulate to start with, and then once you've got it into a bit of muscle memory, it's much easier then to transfer into your slightly more difficult pastel pencils, which are also, of course, more expensive to be practicing with. So really hope you found this useful. Do not forget to download the worksheet that goes alongside this. You'll find it very useful to help you complete the steps and also return to when you get to using your pastel pencils.